Hello, I'm Greg Hunter. We have a new guest on, Dr. Laurence Kotlikoff. He's a professor of economics at Boston University. Dr. Kotlikoff, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
My pleasure, Greg.
And thank you for taking time out. I should say on your vacation, you had a friend of yours' house, and you decided to talk with us about this crazy fiscal cliff. And I want to say that when I first started hearing about the real deficit for America, I think you were at around $202 trillion. And according to people like John Williams, even USA Today, the last few years, the real deficit was $5 trillion in 10 and 11. And Williams says it's $7 trillion if you use generally accepted accounting principles in 12. And you're saying that the real deficit that we're talking about is how much now?
Well, we have to think about this the way economists think about it, which is to look at a balance sheet. A balance sheet has assets and liabilities. The assets for the U.S. government are all the future taxes that are projected to come in, and that's being projected by the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office. And then there are also these liabilities, which are all the projected spending, including servicing the official debt. So that the difference between the liabilities and the assets of the U.S. government, as projected by the Congressional Budget Office, is now $222 trillion if we extend these projections out into the future. Now, that's the fiscal gap. That's what economists think is the right measure.
That's how much we're short.
And it's $222 trillion. Last year it was $211 trillion, so it grew by $11 trillion in 1 year. So if you want to think about the true deficit, which is how big did the total kind of net liabilities of the U.S. government grow? They grew by $11 trillion over 1 year. Now, this is 12%. To pay off $222 trillion or come up with $222 trillion in present value, you don't need a $1 trillion treasury coin out of whatever composition. You need $222 trillion. That's 12% of GDP going forward. In other words, if you came up with 12% of GDP, the present value of that forever, the present value of that would be $222 trillion. For Greece, the comparable number is not 12% of GDP, but 10%. For Germany, it's 5% of GDP. For Italy, it's 5%. For Canada, it's close to 0%. So we are actually in worse fiscal shape than any developed country at this point, and we are hiding all the problems under the rug. We're using this false accounting. We're using accounting that would make Bernie Madoff blush. And Congress has accumulated all these liabilities off the books, and they're called Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense spending. We're spending more than the next 10 countries combined in defense. And these obligations are coming due. We have 78 million baby boomers. We're going to have to pay them collectively about $3 trillion per year when they're fully retired in today's dollars. And this is just around the corner. And the president says, well, Social Security only needs to be tweaked, and we don't have to worry. He's not too concerned about Medicare or Medicaid. He doesn't like Paul Ryan's proposals on trying to, there's just so many problems lurking there that we need to deal with.
I do notice that, I analyze the news. That's by saying I analyze the news and give you a clear picture of what's going on. I don't see you on the channels very much. You must be person non grata. I mean, you're the guy that comes in and says, hey, not only is the punch bowl spiked, it's spiked with poison. And is Congress calling you up, or Congress people and senators or the president or his advisors calling you saying, Dr. Kotlikoff, could you please, explain to us, your view of the massive debt? Is anybody calling you?
Well, I have been talking to Paul Ryan off and on. Not that I'm a Republican. I'm not a Republican, and I'm critical of the president because he's in charge. He's the adult responsible at this point. But Governor Romney wasn't coming forward with really responsible proposals either. They weren't talking about the magnitude of the problem. So, no, I haven't had any real contact with the administration. I volunteered to go talk to anybody in the administration about these problems. We have one way, economic theory says, to measure one thing, which is this fiscal gap. It's $222 trillion. It's enormous. And we're not bankrupt. It's not in the future. It's a credit card bill that's the country owes right now. And if we don't pay interest on it, it gets bigger. That's why it got $11 trillion bigger from last year to this year. So, yeah, the administration should be talking to me and other economists who actually are not politically oriented to try and understand what the true picture is and fix it.
Let's bring it down to the street level, to the guy on the street driving a cab, or going to work every day at Walmart, or going to work on Wall Street, wherever. What does that mean to the general population that we have this much debt? What's their near-term and intermediate-term future look like in terms of the buying power of their money?
Well, the two things to say. If we do this adjustment all through taxes, we would have to raise every single federal tax immediately and permanently by 64%. And if we wait for 10 years, the hike is going to be even bigger. So the longer we wait, the bigger the bill is for our kids. Now, the other thing is that we are printing lots and lots of money to cover these expenses. The Fed has been printing basically 12 cents for every dollar the government is spending. So we have a huge expansion of the money supply underway associated with the federal government, Federal Reserve's printing of money. So a lot of the expenses are just being paid for by newly created money, and that could lead to massive inflation. We've had a tripling of the base money supply since 2007 by this Federal Reserve. Tripling
of the money supply. And they're locking it up in the banks, so they're trying to, keep a lid on the inflation, right? And trying to offset with labor deflation. Is that correct?
We're trying to bribe the banks to not lend out the money. But the base money, as well as M1, these are two measures of the money supply. The base money is how much the Fed has put into the economy, and M1 is how much the public is actually holding in the form of money. And these things have both gone up by about a factor of 3. So we have the basis for a tripling of the price level in place already. And Bernanke, Ben Bernanke, who is a friend of mine and a highly respected economist, certainly done great work, but he's playing with a lot of fire here because we could have a tripling of the price level.
So you're saying prices, if we triple the money supply, could prices also triple? And if so, when would that happen?
Well, the price level has, in many ways, a mind of its own. We as economists know that if you print enough money, eventually you're going to have inflation. Exactly the timing, we don't have great theories of. If everybody believes that prices are going to take off, they can make it happen. Just like if everybody believes there's a recession, they can start laying off people if they're employers, and lo and behold, you have a recession. So there's enough money sloshing around here for us to have easily a tripling of the price level, given the relationship between the prices and the money supply that we've seen historically. So as soon as people get, kind of wind of the fact that the government is printing lots and lots of money to pay for its bills, 12 cents of every dollar that we're spending is now being just printed out of thin air, then they may start getting nervous about buying U.S. long-term bonds at these very low interest rates. They may dump those bonds. Interest rates might shoot up. The Fed might print even more money to try and lower interest rates. This might lead to even more fear of inflation. And then you get people starting to think about money as a hot potato, and they start moving it around very rapidly, and it becomes effectively like a lot more money, and then prices start to take off. This is the process. Now, it hasn't happened yet, but again, Bernanke is playing with fire by printing so much money and not forcing Congress to really deal with what's going on.
Final question: how can the average Joe protect themselves? Do you buy a sovereign bond? Do you buy stocks? Do you buy gold, silver, farmland? What do you do?
Well, gold's very expensive. I think real estate's relatively cheap now, and that should do well against inflation. I think taking out a mortgage, because if you're at these low rates, you can pay back in watered-down dollars if inflation takes off. But buying long-term U.S. Treasury bonds or any long-term nominal bond that's not protected against inflation is highly risky. So that's something people should avoid because prices are likely to explode in the near term.
And as prices go up, the value of your equity goes down in the bond. And what about silver? Good play, dangerous, what?
Well, I don't know enough about the silver or gold markets. I know that some of these things are very highly priced at this point, and I think stocks in general are good. But if the U.S. gets into really bad trouble, everything's going to be in bad shape, and we are in very bad trouble. We don't have adults running the country. We have people that are apparently don't care about their kids. They're at war with their kids, the way they're acting.
My last question, I know that the other one was my last question, but this is my last question. Are you worried? Are you worried about a collapse, a calamity, a bond crisis, a dollar rout? Are you worried about all these things?
Yes, I'm terribly worried. I wrote a book with a co-author, Scott Burns, called The Clash of Generations, and wrote a book in 2003 called The Coming Generational Storm. So I've been worrying about this and warning about this for decades now, actually going back to the late 80s. So, situation's getting worse and worse and worse. We're running a massive 6-decade-long Ponzi scheme, and it's coming to a real threatening point.
Dr. Laurence Kotlikoff, professor of economics at Boston University, thank you very much for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
My pleasure. Thank you.